Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we delve into the world of artificial intelligence to explore the future of infrastructure and technology and the people reshaping both. And to do this, we're diving into one of the biggest and most urgent challenges facing the built environment, namely how we manage and maintain our aging infrastructure in a world of rising costs, growing risks and tightening resources. Now, across the UK and beyond, roads, bridges, railways and public assets are showing their age. Traditional methods of inspection and maintenance are expensive, reactive and often too slow to really move the dial and catch up decades of underinvestment. But there's a quiet revolution underway, powered by artificial intelligence, that's potentially changing how we understand and care for the structures we rely on every day. And my guest today is someone right at the heart of that transformation. Tom Bartley is Director of Civil Infrastructure at AI scale-up Mind Foundry and brings a deep understanding of both the engineering and the technology worlds, with past roles at WSP and Jacobs. And as co-founder of Barbel and Dot Built Environment, he's spent his career championing digital transformation across planning, design and delivery. Now at Mind Foundry, a company born out of Oxford University research, he's working to deploy responsible AI that helps asset owners predict risks, extend the life of critical infrastructure and make better decisions and make them faster. So let's find out and explore how AI is being used on projects like HS2 and many others, and ask what is holding the sector back from adopting innovation, and perhaps see if Tom can convince us why human AI collaboration is the key to building smarter, safer systems. Tom, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thanks, Anthony. Great to be here.
Well, Tom, let's get straight into it. From your perspective, what is the current state of infrastructure condition management in the UK, and what role can AI realistically play in that transformation? I mean, give us the pitch.
Sure. So, well, as you said, our infrastructure is aging. The average age of our structures is reaching 50 years this decade. And as people, concrete and structures, when they reach about 50 years old, we start to slow down a little bit and start to show the signs of our age.
Oh, you can speak for yourself there, Tom.
I'm approaching it far too quickly. But at the same time, what we're seeing is a change in the workforce and a change in the way that infrastructure is managed, in terms of a lot of people have spent their careers looking after these structures and are retiring themselves, and a switch to a bigger reliance on consultants and kind of outsourcing expertise and maintenance from asset owners. It's causing a number of challenges, and ultimately what we're seeing is that we're losing a sense of the long-term perspective around our structures. And what we're left with is a burgeoning crisis in terms of there's a lot of work going to be required. There's a lot of justification. There's a lot of prioritization. And that's a lot to take on. And so where we see AI having a big role is being better at capturing the condition of our structures, crucially understanding how that's changing over time, which ones are getting worse faster, and where the prioritization is, and then how you optimize maintenance and kind of the interventions across large portfolios. Even a modestly sized local authority will have several hundred structures that they kind of have to trade off the priorities around.
So a great diagnosis there of the problem and an analysis of what the current situation is. But what would you say are the most significant barriers holding back that change and creating a more effective infrastructure management process? I mean, are those barriers around the technical skills, or is it a cultural thing? Or is it just the whole structure of the sector's not in the right shape?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, really. That we it always comes down to money, doesn't it? But when a structure's been stood there for 50 years quite happily, not falling down, it's really hard to convince a politician that there's actually a problem.
Right.
And so a big part of the kind of the outward stakeholder engagement is convincing those budget holders that they do need to make an intervention now. It's only when, right, we've got to shut the road or the railway's closed, that it becomes like an urgent, we have to fix it now. And so what we're seeing is, like, how do we bring that forward? How do we kind of show politicians and show those stakeholders in a way that's not engineering language, that's not kind of big PDF reports, no, there is actually an issue here, and we need to invest today.
Right, but of course, not everyone thinks that AI is our saviour. Many believe quite the opposite. I mean, how do you see the risks, particularly in the management of things which are really quite critical in our national infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big challenges is that we're putting huge expectations on what AI will be able to do for us. We've seen like the incredible magic of things like ChatGPT, and suddenly our horizon is open to, and our expectations are well beyond the capability of where technology is actually today when we're talking about niche use cases. And so I think it's not really a risk, but it's a misalignment of expectations, and kind of a disappointment when you've got kind of really nice tactical interventions that can actually accumulate to really high returns on investment. So the expectation management is the kind of thing that we're seeing. When we engage with owners, with project managers, etc., they're kind of looking for the paradise solution rather than saying what are the things we can solve today, and how do we kind of get over our current burning issues so that we can create the headspace to solve the bigger issues later.
Yeah, but is it a question of setting out those expectations? I mean, what AI is not trying to do is find new or untested solutions. It's actually just helping the profession to get to those solutions faster.
I think so. I mean, we've seen that AI can have a left field approach to things and kind of create the non-obvious solution because it's seen a pattern that humans haven't seen, and that's really exciting. But when we talk at Mind Foundry, our kind of goal is all around bringing AI into the loop. So we're not about replacing current systems. We're not about changing or disrupting kind of ways of working. But what we do see is that there's lots of risks that aren't being managed appropriately. And there's a real strong role for AI to come and mitigate those risks and deliver efficiencies, but within the constraints of it's just so hard. We're one of the oldest industries in the world. We can't just transform that in one step. So we have to kind of take that far more tactically.
Yeah. And how would you define those risks then? Because you said that there are many of those risks that we're not managing properly. Is there a hierarchy that you're kind of dealing with there?
I mean, the biggest risk is that we have to close the bridge or it falls down. But at a much smaller level is the data that we're collecting of a high enough quality? Have we put people in harm's way where we didn't need to put them in harm's way to collect that data? Have we projected out in the right way? Have we got blind spots in the human analysis? Are our traditional methods of calculating, which are based on very deterministic approaches, are they suitable for the complexity that we have? And so there's lots of where we're kind of sensing issues and classifying issues in a way that's consistent. One of the things when we talk about condition management is based on human inspectors going out to visit an asset, pointing at the asset. They've got to rank what they see on a rating of 1 to 5. Right, yeah. 1 is it's in perfect condition. 5, it's already fallen over. So you've only got a condition of 2 to 4 where we're grading how good is our infrastructure. Yeah. And there's a big gap between a low 2 and a high 4 or a high 3. But there's a very small gap between a high 2 and a low 3. And so actually having the nuance and having the detail between those things is really challenging. And it's very easy for inspectors, and we see the data bears this out when we've worked with major infrastructure owners, that 40% of defects are classified differently by concurrent inspectors. Wow. So we've got no idea what condition our assets are in.
No, well, infrastructure, I mean, it is notoriously data poor. So, give us an example. How is Mind Foundry overcoming that data quality and availability issues in the real world of projects and the real world of people going out there and looking at stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so my background is that I started my career doing BIM and kind of implementing all these big standards that are all about data structures and kind of ways of working. And what I've noticed in AI is that it allows us to skip some of those steps. And actually, we can use AI to generate the better data. So at Mind Foundry, what we're doing, we've started with, whilst we'd love to do the portfolio and analytics and kind of prediction and optimization, what we're actually starting with is just making the data that comes out of the inspection process better, using computer vision techniques to assist with measurement, to reduce the objectivity, to look at change over time. And actually,
so it's getting that consistency.
That's right. And it's really quite small tactical things that we're doing, but have huge ramifications for the quality of the data. And then we can start to do the really big, exciting things later. But yeah, I think we've over-indexed on database designs that were suitable for the 1980s. And if you look at kind of how ChatGPT structures its thinking, it's just this mess of everything on the internet is put into a model and it worked it out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we can start to think about some of our infrastructure management as well. If we think a digital transformation is a precursor to AI, we're going to miss the opportunity because the digital transformation is too expensive.
No, well, the sector has been talking about digital transformation for decades. I mean, would you say that we're getting there now?
I think we are. I think it's really hard to see it in real time, and it's really hard when people are involved in projects that move at different paces to other projects. But I was really fortunate to be at Jacobs before I joined Mind Foundry in a kind of a corporate role where I got to look across all the innovations that were happening, and it's fantastic. The rate of development, the use of 3D model, of generative design, of using natural language processing for consultations, and there's kind of a whole load of stuff where we are really starting to get there. And I think that starts because it's actually happening bottom up. We've got this new generation coming through where we talked about digital natives for a long time, but they're actually now in management. They're now, they're now the technical director grade where they expect things to be done differently. And that's enabling kind of this new culture and this kind of new approaches to actually give it a go and kind of see, is this possible?
Which is interesting because we do hear a lot about the fact that the industry needs to employ a whole load of new skills. What you're saying there is actually quite a lot of those, those digital native skills are actually with the industry right now.
I think so. With like the way that graduates are coming through with Python skills and kind of natively using just modern web approaches, that they're there. I think what we are missing is the governance and how to kind of make sure these projects are successful and scalable. But yeah, I think within the large consultancies and with large, working with major owners, they've got great digital teams that are doing fantastic work. And so I think the skills have been hired, and we don't need to look externally in the same way that we thought we might, because that generation has come through.
Yeah. So just talk us through in reasonably simple terms, I suppose, but how does Mind Foundry's AI model or models actually help to extend the life of structures? How does it make it possible for infrastructure professionals, as I said at the top, to make faster, better decisions?
Yeah, so we're starting, I should say that Mind Foundry is 10 years old, but our civil infrastructure team is only a year. So we're kind of just getting started at the start line. But what we are focusing on very much is that data quality, helping make sure that what comes out of the inspection process is reliable. And actually that will make a huge difference in terms of decision making. And it's as much about AI working with other digital techniques as well. So coupling computer vision and automatic measurements and classifications with an amazing user experience that means that rather than delivering the same classic 200-page PDF report for an asset engineer to review, they now get a virtual environment to step into. They can see the defects in their context, and they can do their own measurements. They didn't need to visit the site. They can see, actually, here's a photo from 5 years ago. How much has that changed? And so bringing those two things together means that we are kind of we talk about design for deployment as much as we talk about our modeling. Bringing those two things together means that we're kind of introducing a change that users can adopt and users can work with.
So there's two sides of it really. So is the one on hand is making sure that data and that information is trustable, explainable, but it's also giving the tools to actually deliver fast and create actionable insights in what is a very complex environment.
That's right. I mean, inspections are, fundamentally going out and pointing at things on a structure, but they're done in the rain at 3:00 in the morning in January during a possession where you've got to be off-site. That produces an awful lot of data, and it's really inefficient. So the value prop that we're working with is really just, we want to be the cheapest way to do an inspection. And so, like, if it just makes sense, you adopt our Mind Foundry, it's called Windward Inspect. You use that, you reduce the amount of time you spent writing a report by at least 50%, but the data quality is higher, and you get to give this digital asset to your client or to the asset engineers, and they'll be able to see those working together. So, it's really kind of contained within the inspection process right now.
Yeah. Let's find a bit more about you, Tom, because you mentioned you used to be at Jacobs. You've got an engineering background, as I said. What drew you personally, I suppose, to the challenge of using AI to solve infrastructure's problems? I mean, was there a light bulb moment for you?
Yeah. So, my career has been, I've worked at WSP. I was at Jacobs recently. I did my own startup. But it all really centered around BIM, building information modeling, introducing new ways of doing data, 3D modeling, all that stuff. Latterly at Jacobs, I was involved in a data analytics platform for major programs where we were aggregating huge amounts of data to predict how a program is going to perform. The light bulb moment came when I was like, we're doing this the 1980s way still. We're still thinking about this like an SQL database. And actually, we can use AI techniques to kind of see things that humans can't. We're trying to rationalize it into our own brain process rather than letting the AI kind of do its own thing. And so it's been brilliant to join a native AI company. We're from the University of Oxford, so it's some of the absolutely brightest brains in the country and it's brilliant to still have that connection to the university. And it just kind of opens the mind to, wow, it wasn't we kind of think, we need data. We can't train the machine learning model unless we have data. But actually there's so many like lateral techniques that you can use to say, well, actually, we don't need examples of this. We can just detect the signal of this thing. A lot of our work in fraud detection in the insurance industry is based on, there isn't actually enough examples of fraud to train a machine learning model the traditional way. But what we can do is look at the signals of fraud. What does an anomaly look like? And how do we kind of bring that through and say, okay, this now has the characteristics of one of those things, similar in the defense domain. So it's just been brilliant to kind of go engage with this kind of world of AI, but have this strong connection back to infrastructure, work on real problems that I've been working on my whole career.
But I imagine that there are lessons you take from your time working in the industry, because all of this really cool and clever stuff, you have to suppose to sell it into people who are in many ways at the cold face, working outside in the rain, dealing with some very difficult environments.
Absolutely. And the reality of the industry is it's really hard to sell innovation.
Yeah, it's very traditional, just incredibly traditional. People like doing things the way they've always done them.
And particularly in an asset management context, the time horizon that asset owners are thinking on completely outspans any term maintenance contract, and it certainly outspans a software license subscription. So there's this real nervousness about, well, what if I make a mistake now that's going to have impact in 25, 50 years? It's a challenge. It's a challenging environment to sell into. But I think it's about finding, as I'm saying, solve small things that deliver obvious value. Currently costs £5,000 to do inspection. With our tool, it costs £3,000. Why wouldn't you just use it? The data quality is higher, and that's where we're trying to kind of intervene at that level.
But I suppose, and you mentioned it earlier, the other thing to bear in mind is that maintenance is the sort of thing that if you don't do anything for a couple of years, then probably no one will notice.
That's right.
And from a political point of view, where you spend money, it's quite hard to sort of make the case for doing stuff now. We need to do it now rather than put it off for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a project, it's funded by the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, ARIA. For Dominic Cummings, Innovate UK wasn't going fast enough, so he created this new agency based on the DARPA model in America. And that's all about projecting how do we build these models that will understand the slow rate of deterioration where it rapidly accelerates at the end, and make that case to politicians. Each step of that, we call it deterioration pathway. If you don't intervene now on the paintwork and it turns to rust, it's going to cost you an order of magnitude more. If you don't fix the rust and it turns to section loss, you're going to have to replace the member. Guess what? That's another order of magnitude. So your £1,000 work suddenly becomes £10,000 or £100,000. Somehow making that across to politicians is going to be absolutely crucial to kind of for the industry to be able to solve this crisis that we have. We can't afford for our bridges to all fail at the same time. Yeah, society will just grind to a halt.
No, but I suppose you having a barbell, you tackled a very specific pain point around engineering workflows, and Dot Built Environment was a pioneering network that you set up. How did you find that experience of launching and leading startups and taking new technology and new ideas into a very traditional environment? What do you learn from that? It's hard, I suppose.
It's really hard. I've also done product management inside those large companies, and that was as hard. You kind of get advantages for being within the ecosystem, but you're also trying to break this construct of the timesheet and kind of how cash flow works, etc. And so, being inside a startup where capitalization and cash flow works in a completely different way, it really allows you to think deeply and thoroughly about a problem. You are absolutely driving value and looking at what do users want and what do buyers want, because they're not the same people. And how do you kind of make that work in a way that, having done that within large companies, senior stakeholders can sometimes assume that it will just happen, because it's their good idea. And so I've really enjoyed being part of the startup ecosystem where there is this threat. You know, Barbel did go bust. We didn't succeed after 3 years, and that's the reality, is that if you don't succeed, so it creates this urgency. It creates this we need this to work in a way that you kind of large corporates kind of give you a bit more of a comfort blanket.
But that whole concept of failing but fail fast. And get to the next idea.
Yeah, avoid failing. Avoid failing if you can. But or minimise the footprint of your failure, I think would be the key thing. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, the business is based out of Oxford. You're based personally in Bristol. What do you do outside of work to stay balanced and inspired in this new challenge? Anything that feeds back into your professional creativity?
It's a great question. So you can imagine I've got an awful lot of screen time in my job, particularly working remotely and working in AI. So I try and spend as much time away from screens as possible, have a camper van, spending time just walking the dogs. I find being away, to kind of answer your question, that's where the inspiration comes. Particularly even if I'm stuck at work, I'll go for a long walk, just get away from the screen, clear the air, no phone, no AirPods or anything, just go out. And I find actually Good Friday, we're recording this just after Easter, and Good Friday was an amazing day because there wasn't all the bings. And so actually I got an awful lot of work done whilst there wasn't any bings happening. So yeah, switching off and kind of being away from things is what I try and do.
So 2 questions. What dogs?
We've got a schnoodle called Bertie, who a Schnauzer Poodle cross, and then we have a whatever dog called Gromit. He's a Romanian rescue, and for insurance purposes he's part Jack Russell, but we have no idea what he is.
Very good. I suppose the second question is, what camper van? Are you old and classic or new and practical?
We had an old and classic one, and it failed its MOT so catastrophisly a couple of years ago. So we've gone a bit newer and shinier, and currently it's also in the garage. So I'm not sure the age has actually delivered the benefits, but it's a little one. It fits into supermarket spaces, and we can be a bit stealthy and camp wherever we like.
Well, that is always a challenge. Where do you camp? But someone did give me a tip that if you're in a camper van, pub car parks apparently are very good, provided you go in and drink some beer and have a meal. And
well, what happens at the other end is also a challenge sometimes as well. So a campsite or the middle of nowhere, or a pub with a bathroom is always a great, enjoyable one. Yeah.
Very good. Well, let's get back to the world of AI and technology and infrastructure. I know you work with projects such as HS2 and many other large projects. How is Mindfoundry's AI being integrated, and what impact would you say it is having on projects like that?
Yeah. So, well, we're focusing on asset management and kind of the aging infrastructure piece. And so we were really fortunate that HS2 have a business accelerator program for startups, and we were accepted onto that latest cohort around asset management. At the early stages of assets, they have similar problems, right? The settlement and the snagging, and there's a whole load of things where actually it's really important that you've got good monitoring as well, particularly as they're adopting these assets where they don't have much history to them. And so we're approaching the pilot stage with HS2 in terms of looking at how our inspection app can support them in the early life. But we're really rolling out for aging infrastructure, and WSP are early adopters with the inspection application, looking at rail infrastructure. The data quality is the key thing that they're driving, but it's just produced, like, they're looking at 50% returns on investment, 30% less time required on site to do those inspections. Hugely valuable when you've only got very narrow windows. So those small things accumulate up to quite large returns quite quickly.
Because you've talked about this infrastructure condition crisis, and I suppose what you are trying to do is really quantify those impacts to make that case to clients, and whether those clients are the WSP or HS2 is actually give them a reason to use a different approach.
That's it. I mean, there's this long-term vision helping kind of address this crisis. The short-term thing is we have to sell something they want to buy today. Yeah. And that's where we kind of focus really on efficiencies and kind of targeting those, like, tangible, you spend this, you'll save money. And yeah. But
I suppose the other platforms are available, Tom. I mean, there are, I imagine, many software solutions. I mean, how does Mindfoundry's approach differ from perhaps more traditional predictive maintenance platforms?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of aspects to that. The first bit is the change over time piece, and the way that we use computer vision to quantify change. All the existing approaches that we've seen are based on taking abstractions of that data, that rating of 2 to 4, how bad is it, and kind of modeling that change over time. We've got millimeter precision quantification of, has that crack grown? What's its width? What's its length? Spalling, those kind of things. The other side of it is really around just the user experience and how we kind of think about creating an environment that people want to use, but also supports this transformation into these longer term prediction models. So where most people, if they're going to use an app to go inspect a bridge, it's going to be a really clunky form that has a lot of fields and they've got to fill it out, and people are getting sore thumbs and it's in the rain in December. We think of our app as a camera, and you just go and take some photos, and you can annotate those photos as you go, or you can annotate them later. Right. So it really kind of, the user experience is, for an inspector, they've just got a much better tool that they can use. For the asset manager, they're getting much better data as a byproduct. So
we're not necessarily moving towards sort of fully autonomous inspections, but you're providing a tool which is making it that much easier, simpler for the actual human operative to put in the right data.
Yeah. So look, drones absolutely have a place, and there's lots of monitoring and sensoring. It's actually more expensive to send a drone operator to go and fly around a bridge, or at least as expensive as sending someone sending a person. And so what we're really focusing on is, like, there's 70,000 kilometers of retaining wall on the railway network. They're really big. There's a lot of high volume, really less glamorous structures. We kind of think about the Clifton Suspension Bridge or the Prince of Wales Bridge or the Hammersmith Flyover. But actually there's a long tail. These asset owners are really worried about some really quite simple structures that could have quite big damage if they failed. And so what we're trying to find is something that just fits in the existing process quite neatly. We're partnering with drone operators as well to integrate the technology into their platforms.
We talk a lot about human and AI collaboration and preserving that human autonomy in AI systems. I mean, what does that mean in practice? You're not talking about taking humans out altogether, but you're giving them a tool which sort of sits behind them. Is that how you describe it?
That's right. AI in the loop is kind of the way that we use it. I don't think we are doing things that are really very complicated, actually. and this kind of like expectation, this naive approach of like AI could just replace these people. That actually, there's so much nuance involved. But if we can provide safeguards and provide ways of that human doing things in a way that's either more efficient or more accurate, then they're going to take much better decisions for themselves. And so when we think about digital custodianship as our vision, we see the digital custodian being a collaborator in the team, but certainly not replacing anyone.
Yeah. But I mean, I suppose it begs the question, how do you see the role of engineers evolving in this AI-powered future? I mean, will engineers eventually become the AI supervisors? Or will those roles blend? I don't know.
No, I think what we'll see, if you wouldn't consider your relationship with ChatGPT as supervising ChatGPT. Sometimes you might set it to a task and like have to like nurse it through the task, but ultimately you're using this as a tool. And I think that's the relationship. We will start to see AI becoming just part of the software that we use, part of the things. You might get an email alert in the morning saying, "Hey, you want to check this out today?" But ultimately, like it's if people are sat there supervising an artificial intelligence, they're not focusing on their actual job, which is looking after these assets.
I mean, there's a lot of cultural shift required there. I mean, you've operated at the intersection of engineering and technology throughout your whole career. I mean, what would you say is, the hardest mindset shift for what you might call traditional engineers when it comes to embracing AI?
Yeah. I think that the project mentality is a real challenge, not invented here. We consider every project to be a unique endeavor, and therefore we think every kind of innovation needs to be unique to that project. And I think if we could change one bit of the culture, it's to say, how is best practice elsewhere, and how do we adopt that without thinking, oh, we're different? That would be a hugely transformative approach. Now there is nuances where people are, but there certainly is a culture of, no, we need our own version of that because we're special. And frankly, most projects aren't.
Yeah. So if you looked at the industry and said, well, if there's one thing you could change, it would be just that. It would be getting people to be slightly more open-minded about the way they approach projects.
Yeah, just like we have been thinking deeply around this specific thing. There's not many organizations actually that have spent so much time thinking just about how we point a camera at a bridge and capture data about it. We've got some really good insights, and we have competitors, but there's always this kind of, oh yes, but that doesn't work for us because, rather than, hey, that sounds really cool. Let's see how that could work for us.
Yeah. Well, you started off, Tom, when we started talking, referencing how hard it quite often is to get the attention of politicians and get the attention of clients when it comes to using AI and new technologies to help make better decisions. So just to finish off, I mean, if you had the full attention of every major infrastructure decision maker in the UK for 30 seconds, I mean, what would you say to convince them that AI isn't just a nice to have, but an essential part of the future of their assets?
Sure. So, I mean, we are in one of the biggest times of change in history, not just technological, but we're looking at climate, we're looking at populations, we're looking at skills, we're looking at the challenges that are facing infrastructure in terms of energy transition, resilience, aging infrastructure are unprecedented. And it's a fool's errand to think that we can just throw more bodies at the problem and we'll be able to solve it. Actually, we need really scalable approaches that can take account of the complexity and solve problems that are bigger than a headful. AI has the potential to do things that are bigger than a headful. And there's, whilst there's a huge scope for people, industry leaders who can deal with the huge complexity of interdependencies of programs, AI is like, it's natively solves that thing, right? It can natively deal with the large complexity of the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah. I love that phrase, solving problems that are bigger than a headful. It does in many ways sum up quite a lot of the challenges that we face. And I suppose one of the things, the challenges that the sector has is that there are many fronts to open up and many fronts to take on. It's a question of picking those challenges. And I imagine that's what you're constantly being challenged around with AI. Where do you start?
I start from the bottom. What are the problems? We like to think of transformation as a top-down initiative, but I think what I've learned across multiple working in major programs, working in asset management, working in policy, is start from the bottom and like deliver small initiatives that deliver value, obvious value, but have a vision for the long term. And as long as you're doing small things that get you closer to the long term, this fail fast thing that you mentioned, the risk of failure, the footprint of the failure is much smaller. And the chance of realising it is much more real, I think.
Brilliant. Well, Tom, thanks so much for sharing. It's a really, really important and really interesting topic for sure. So thanks for helping us, walking us through the challenges and those opportunities of AI in the whole field of infrastructure management. Thanks for joining me today on the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. It's been great to speak.
Great stuff. No, really enjoyed that. But sadly, that's all we've got time for today on the podcast. But there will be more in the pipeline as we continue to probe the big issues facing the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you will find background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share with your colleagues. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Tom for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.